Thank you. Hello and welcome again to our online Zoom meeting. Anybody that's out there watching, welcome. Okay, so we're all here and we're all ready to go. We'll start with the public forum. Barry and Lynn, are you there? You need to turn your microphone on if you are. I'll just run you through the process while you're doing that. Hopefully you're doing that. Lower left-hand corner of your screen. There you go. You're there, yeah?
I don't know if you can see us, but
not yet.
We can hear you.
So you all right there?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, look, there you are. Beautiful. Okay, Barry and Lynn, welcome to our meeting. Have you been to a public forum before?
No.
No. Okay. So you've got 5 minutes to give us a rundown of why you're here, even though here is cyberspace, and then we will quite likely be asking you some questions. Is that okay?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll tell you when your time's up, and then just hang out, don't go away, and we'll have a chat. All right?
All right.
Good-o. Away you go.
Righto. My name's Len. We come home at New Year's 2nd of the 1st of this month to Long Beach. I live at Long Beach, so does Barry. And the domain was being used by, it was just so nice to see. There was hundreds of people on it. As you probably know, the domain's been blocked off by rocks and things like that. Well, these people must have got on somehow, and they're really enjoying themselves. So my partner went over and done a survey with them to see if we could get the domain opened up for the public so they could use it, drive on, have their picnics, and play sport. Within an hour, she got 70-something signatures off the people who just come down for the day. They wanted it open, and I've done the local survey around Long Beach, and I've got 80 odd locals who want it and 4 against. So that's the part of it. But we'd like the whole thing opened up so people can come down in their cars, park on the grass, park under a tree, and have a picnic, and the rest goes swimming. Because the status quo at the moment and is that for some reason the council has closed the domain to all vehicles. Not sure what the reasoning or rationale is for that. Historically, the park has been used for picnics. In the old days, it was used for corporate picnics, Bell Tea, Tip Top. They all used to come out here and have their picnics out here. And for some reason, I'm not sure why, signs went up last year, no more cars on the domain. And they're beautifully looked after, but they're just there to look at the moment rather than use.
Okay, so is that you done?
Not quite.
Okay, keep going. Good.
What actually annoys me is it's a domain. It's been a domain for 98 jolly years. It's 100 coming up, but it's been open for 98 years. And we've had very little problems with it. And I think it's Scott McLean. He told me that it was the original council who actually got it closed. Not original, I think they're at the meeting tonight. West Harbour Community. And I just can't see why they would do that. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but that's what I was told. So all we want is it opened up, 4 rocks shifted, cost no money. It's going to cost 20,000 to put the stupid car park in they're talking about, which no one wants. And yes, that's all we want, especially for old people in cars and who can't walk, and things like that.
And historically, it gets you know, this year, even though it's been closed,
People still go on and use it because it hasn't been fully shut off at the moment. And, you know, we have big Pacific Island groups come down here and they play sport. We get big Indian groups come down here using it. We used to get vintage Clark Hubs come down and using it, but because they don't want to be seen to be doing something they're not to do now, they've stopped coming down here. If we don't want just one part of it opened up, we want the whole thing opened up. Status quo, just how it has been for the last 100 years, 98 years. I'd like to know who brought the gravel down and put it in the car park down there. So I had the meeting with the guys from the council. They said nothing would happen until this Zoom meeting started. So I'd like to know.
Say again, Len?
I'd just like to know how that gravel got down there. Len's concerned there's been a big pile of gravel dumped in the car park, and he's concerned that's to just what we were told what they want to do is just have car parking under the trees. You know, we just want people to be able to use it, and how strictly they have, and mums and dads with young children park their car, sit beside it, have a picnic with their friends, rather than congest the car park and, you know, and it just doesn't get used. Just along from the trees, the big trees, there's two red lines. That's where they want to put a car park. So you're just locking people up again. It's going to cost $20,000 to do that. Put a few posts in, stop people getting back on the grass. That's not what we want. We want it opened up.
Okay,
that's my lot. Thank you.
Okay, right. So yeah, I was just going to say your 5 minutes are up, but well done finishing yourself. Finishing then. Okay, so for sure we're going to have some questions. I've got a question to start with. I would like to, if you, Len, would get to me a copy of your what you've got down there from the people of Long Beach and the people that were on the domain that day. If you could get that to me, that'd be wonderful. Thank you very much. And I'll probably have some more questions, but I think let's see if anybody else, Councillor Walker has a question. Go, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. And thank you, Len and Barry. I've got a couple of questions, actually. Are you aware that, because it was at my time as a community board chair, are you aware that ironically it was blocked off because there was a lobby group from Long Beach who came to the community board, can't remember the exact time, a number of years ago, complaining about the number of hoons who were cutting up at that time? I presume it doesn't happen now, but that was, are you aware that was the original reasoning? Yeah,
I do get that occasionally there are hoons and they drop 360s on it, but that wasn't a community. That was a very small number of people that had the voice of some ears. They didn't lobby the community like Len did. Len went around the whole community. He got 4 people that were adamant no, and I would suggest they were some of the people that managed to get the rocks in there. Yep. But the community, the majority of the community wants it open. One lady stood up at the meeting. I know someone on the council somewhere, I'll get it locked off, and she did. And I've been told since then, no, she didn't. It was the community board that got it locked off. So let's get this.
Understand that, Len. And no, we would have done something reacting to the community. So my second question is, I understand that Scott McLean, manager of Parks and Recs, has liaised with you guys. Could you just give me a wee rundown how that went?
I showed him what we wanted, showed him where the cars go, and he brought this wee plan. What he thought he would do was put this silly car park under the trees, for all God's sake. You don't put a car park under trees. And then he was going to put a fence along there to make sure.
Cool. I understand that. So then, I mean, my knowledge of Long Beach is when I go down there, there's what I call the southern, and I'll refer to them as car parks, but they're informal, the southern
Yeah.
and the northern car park. So are you talking about the southern or the northern car park?
The southern car park is where he wants to put extended along the trees. The northern car park, we'll call it the north end, it's getting so much use, climbing rocks and cars parking there. Park.
Would you have any objections to the northern car park in some way being formalized? Because my recollection is it's not very formalized, is it?
It's not, it's terrible. That's why we want the rocks shifted, and then they can park on the grass.
Okay.
I can even get nothing for you.
No, I can see your passion. I get what you're saying. So my final question is, and no disrespect by asking this question. So in terms of people getting from, let's again call it the informal southern car park, getting onto the grass, my, again, recollection, because I've been there quite a number of times, is it's not very far. So is your objection, it's just because perhaps some people who aren't that able, it's a problem for them to, because it's not, it's only, what 10, 20 meters?
For me, it's the big community groups that come down, the Pacific Island, the Indian posses, that they all do it anyway, but technically they're breaking the law. The bottom line is, I don't know who does it, but the signs have been put up, not to park on the grass. They go as soon as they go up. I don't know who's taking them down. It's certainly not me or Len, but you know, people are doing it anyway. But our fear is it gets more formalized and more closed down, and
People don't come. End of story. 2 years ago, I come off the park, and this old lady and a man, this is Fairgo, they were sitting in the car. And I went up to her and I said, what's the matter? She was driving. She says, all we wanted to do was go and park under the trees and reminisce when we brought our kids down. And he had a walking frame there. He couldn't walk very far. After that, I wrote a letter to the paper. It got edited, waste of time. So then after this Christmas, when I seen all the people there enjoying themselves, having a great time, I thought, right, I'm going to try and do something. That's why I got my petition going. And I went round every house I could, regardless who lived there, and tried to
Yeah,
get all...
I understand that, Len. And I understand that. Well done. I'll let somebody else have some questions. I'm glad to know you haven't got a collection of DCC signs sitting in your house. Thank you.
Jackie.
Hi, Len and Barry. Thanks for coming in. How much would you say usage has dropped for the recreation area at Long Beach since the rocks have been installed?
99%.
Okay.
I went down here, and since Christmas until even this weekend, come down and have a look for yourselves. People are coming down again. It's lovely.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, Steve.
Sorry, in the absence of other people asking questions. So one final question, Len and Barry, and I mean no disrespect by this. I just asked this question because of experience of these sort of situations. So you've got a petition, and a lot of people have signed it. Would you have any objection to the board stroke the DCC doing their own survey just to confirm the desire of the community to do that?
Yeah, I have no objection as they
Are fair and do everybody.
do the community, because my experience in living here is the squeaky wheels get the grease, and people like Len and I, unless we see things that are happening that are really, really fundamentally we believe are wrong, then we may say something about it.
Yep, cool, thank you.
Great. Okay, so anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, Trevor would like a question, if that's all
Oh,
right.
sorry. Yep, Trevor, you go, then you can go Duncan, and then I've got another one. Trevor.
Oh, Duncan can go first.
Okay, Duncan.
Duncan.
Duncan Edie.
Hey, thanks for coming along, guys. My question's about those rocks that have been put there to stop the hoons from getting onto the domain. They don't actually stop anyone from getting onto the domain if they want to drive over the bushes, do they?
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's always, why do something that
It's not.
hurts the majority because of a few idiots? You know, that's what I don't get. If the reason is because there were hoons on the domain, it happens. Hasn't happened much this year, but a couple of years ago, there was someone coming down here on a regular basis.
Great. Okay, Duncan, yep. Yep, Trevor?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for coming down, guys. Are you aware that when this first happened, I brought it up with the board, but my complaints fell on deaf ears at that time. Are you also aware that this is one of the things that's happening with a lot of city council car parks right down the coast being blocked off so that people can't have their cars on there?
Yeah. So does that make it right? That's my response.
Yeah. Oh, well, I 100% agree with you. But the other thing I was going to say, are you aware that this is going to be discussed in the chair's report and that you can stay and listen to that discussion?
No.
No,
Well, you
It's
can
just-
stay and listen to it.
be tonight.
Yeah.
No problem at all. But
Oh.
you're going to do a sit down here with the council. You're not going to do it today. That took me 3 weekends to get the signatures I got, because people aren't all here. Always here.
You touched on the vintage cars coming down. Are you aware that every year clubs came down to the domain, put their vintage cars on there and actually had field trials, had their cars on the domain, a lot of entertainment for the locals, and they don't do that anymore because of access?
Yes. I used to work on the wharf, and we used to come down and have our picnics. They were great. You know, plenty of people playing cricket, kids running things in the sacks and that for the kids. You don't see that now.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Okay,
Okay.
so, I've got one more question for you, Barry and Lynn. Are you aware that this was undertaken in conjunction with the implementation, nationwide implementation of the beaches and access bylaw, where all councils are trying to discourage people from driving on beaches, and Long Beach, of course, is a beach where people just do drive, and that one of the reasons for that was to discourage that happening. And I do understand that I have heard as a resident person and I guess chairperson that that people do just drive on the beach anyway. Is that correct?
There's actually a lot of people. Well, I used to drive on the beach when you're allowed to drive on the beach, but I don't anymore. It means I have to, walk, a kilometre and a half if I want to go spearfishing down the other end, or go surfing at the other end. I've got a kilometre and a half walk. And I would say now there's a lot less vehicles on the beach than there has been. There's still access to the beach, of course, and there's still the odd person that uses it, but it's not like it is now. But we're not talking about the beach.
No, I hear you. I was just asking because the whole thing was done around about the same time, and that and the rangers that came out were part of that. They were not policing. They were checking on the car parking, but also wanting to see who, if anybody, was driving on the beach as a whole part of that thing. So that's great. Thank you so much for your coming to see us, and we'll see. Hang around and listen to us later on. It won't be for a little while, probably half an hour at least, but you're absolutely more than welcome to hang out and listen. Just keep yourself on mute, and we appreciate no input from you, if that's all right.
It's all good. Yep.
Right. Okay. So thanks for coming, and yes, I hope you've got a cup of tea for this next few bits.
Thank you.
without having.
I've done it. Wendy's done it, Barry. Okie doke. So everybody, no, we've had no apologies. Everybody's had a look at their agenda, and so I'd like to move that we confirm the agenda with the following alteration. The archives, Scattered Seeds people can't come because they're unwell. And so they will come to the next meeting, which will be fantastic, because then we can see them in person and each other. So all those in favour? Oh, I need a second, please. Sorry. Thanks, Trevor. All those in favour? Everybody's all good? Yes, thank you very much. That's beautiful. I declare that one carried. Anybody have any amendments at all or updates for the register of the declarations of interest register?
Yes.
Yes, Jackie.
Yes, I couldn't help but notice that everybody else seems to have their board representation roles listed on theirs, except for me, which just does look to the public as if I don't do anything at all. So, so would that be able to be included? Port Noise, Purakanui, Long Beach, West Harbour Emergency Response Group, and the West Harbour Community Awards. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's, yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. That'd be great.
You know what? Between you and everybody that's watching, I didn't read the register this time. I think that's the first time that's appeared, but hey, yep, we can do that. So with those amendments, I would like to, anybody else? No, yes? I would like to move that we confirm that with the amendments. Thank you, Steve, he's seconding. And now all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No worries. Everybody knows you do things, Jackie. But yes, of course they do. Right. Everybody's read their agenda. Sorry, their minutes from last time. I would like to move that we accept those, we confirm those minutes. Can I have a second, please? Thank you, Ange. All those in favour?
Aye.
All of us, beautiful. I declare that carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up, everybody's read Trevor's letter. Yes, that's in the agenda. He is resigning due to fully personal reasons. It's not that he hates any of us.
Well, that's not quite right. I'm resigning as deputy chair.
Resigning as deputy chair. That is true. Excuse me. Sorry about that, Trevor. And so therefore we need to elect a new deputy chair. But first, before we do that, we need to decide what system we are going to use to do that. Personally, I think the system B works really well and is quite straightforward. Has everybody read how that works?
Yes.
Yes, good, yes. Great, okay, so I'd like to propose that we use system B. Is everybody happy with that?
Second,
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. So all those in favour?
Aye.
I declare that carried. And now I would like to ask if call for nominations. I would like to call for, that's what I was just going to say. Calling for nominations.
I have
I'd like to nominate Christina Goldsmith for deputy chair.
Beautiful, thank you, Duncan. Have I got a second?
I'll second that.
Yep, well, we've got two seconders, so that's Steve Walker. All right, so any other nominations? Rightio. All those in favour of Christina Goldsmith as our new deputy chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Everybody's happy with that?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Yep. Carried unanimously. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
We'll
Very big honour.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Big shoes to fill, Trevor. Thank you.
Oh, I only take a size 10.
Bigger than mine.
That's fine. I'm sure you'll do well. Good luck.
Thanks. Thank
Beautiful.
you, Trevor.
Welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, righto. So now to the housing action plan. I am totally happy and pumped to be welcoming you, Jill. I know. And look at you, you're on the ISS. That's just fantastic. Housing action planner. And so now I'll just let Jill tell you who she is and why she's here. Go, Jill.
So firstly, can I just check that everyone can hear me okay? Because sometimes my sound needs to be up higher, sometimes.
Yeah, can you turn it up, Jill, a wee bit?
Turn it up? Certainly. Just give me 1 second. How does that sound? Is that better?
No, it needs a bit more.
How about that? You good now?
No,
Just for me.
What's going on, Councillor Walker?
I'm either deaf or your system quieter than others.
So is that sounding all right now?
Yeah, that's much better. That's much better.
So just excuse me while I hold my small microphone out here and look rather dopey. So kia ora tātou, my name is Jill Brown. I am the Housing Action Plan Advisor from the DCC. A little bit of background for me because that will make my my role a little bit clearer. So I actually work for Kāinga Ora. I'm paid by Kāinga Ora, but I'm a staff member at the DCC. Kāinga Ora is the new version of Housing New Zealand. The new legislation went through in 2019, changed the focus of Kāinga Ora away from just social housing to looking at full-on community work, like the whole gamut of building, everything from social housing right through to developments. A good example of their development has been Hobsonville. So Hobsonville was actually a development that has been done by Kāinga Ora, or a part of the Kāinga Ora, which is now part of us. It's a big story. Anyway, within that, there became a local decision makers. So a lot of the senior roles, some of the senior roles were decentralised. So we now have a regional director in Dunedin, who covers Otago Southland, which is fabulous news because we were struggling to be heard about what we need in the Deep South, and that covers both Otago and Southland. So Tim, the regional director at the time, and Sandy had a conversation about what was needed to get things moving in the Dunedin space. Sandy wanted a resource and Tim wanted some liaison work done inside the council. So inside the council, that was me. So I'm paid by Kāinga Ora, but I sit in council. For Kāinga Ora, I do a lot of the pre-work before a project gets off the ground. So I get the right people around the table so that we can talk about what the issues are going to be and problem solve what the issues around any potential development is going to be. And that hopefully will grease the wheels a little bit and get things moving. Kāinga Ora has a target of building over 350 homes in Otago and Southland in the next 2.5 years. So that's a phenomenal build rate. Some of those will be prefab, some of those will be apartments. It's full on. When I came into the council wanted me to effectively do an update of the Mayor's Task Force for Housing, which was finalised in 2019. Whilst the council took stewardship of that document, nobody physically held it. No, it was not one person's role to hold it. So it was spread over many departments within council, so property, planning, etc. And they wanted it both updated and they wanted us to find out how I could effectively grease the wheels for other people, much like I'm trying to do for KO. So what I've been charged with doing is to create a housing plan, and a housing plan for the city that covers that whole continuum of buildings. So everything from the people who don't have any housing resilience right up to those who have multi-million-dollar residences and don't need assistance necessarily, which is why you see that in the briefing paper, you'll see that diagram. That diagram is an international one. I've just added a few extra bits. So for the last 6 months, what I've been doing is I've been having conversations with anybody who will talk to me. Age groups, I've talked to people from the age of 17 up to 90. I've talked to NGOs, non-governmental organisations. I've talked to those with no housing resilience. So I've sat in homeless shelters and talked to people about what they want and what they need. I've talked to developers, I've talked to landlords, I've talked to students, you name it. I've talked, you name the group, I've probably talked to them, but I'm happy, and I say this now, I'm happy for you to pass on my details to anybody else. I didn't put my email address on that sheet, which was an oversight, and I apologise for that, but it is just jill.brown@dcc.govt.nz, but it's Jill with a G. Thanks, Mum. So what I'm doing from now on is that I've had these conversations, I've themed up the work that I've got from people, which, as you could imagine, is sort of wide and varied. I've themed it into 5 themes, and they're going to be presented at the C&C committee next week. And obviously from that point, they're public. And then I'm going to go back to the people that I've talked to and anybody else who wants to be involved and have a conversation with them around, okay, so what are our specific goals? So an example of one of the themes is around advocacy. So what is it that we specifically want to advocate for? What are the things that we think are problematic within our city? And an example of this would be probably the boarding houses not being covered by the RTA, by the Residential Tenancies Act. So people have very little housing resilience when they're living in a boarding house. So that might be an example of something we may advocate for, but that's obviously down the track. At the moment, I'm just making the themes. I'm sorry I can't give you the themes. They haven't been in front of council yet. They're going next week. So they'll be in the papers, my reports in the papers for the C&C committee, which I understand will be public. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So feel free to ask me questions.
Okay, right, who wants to go first? Duncan.
Thanks for coming along, Jill. My biggest question is, are you aware that there is vacant residential sections in Port Chalmers that are publicly owned?
There are currently 2,615 sections in the Dunedin city area, like the city, not the wider city, that have no improvements on them that are paying rates. So there is not only public land, there is private land as well, trying to get underneath why those are not being built on. Some of them will be weird little driveways or big gardens or tennis courts or whatever, but there are probably half of those that should be being built on. I want to know why. I've got a couple of answers from some people. With regards to the council-owned land, there is a huge piece of work going on at the moment in the property team around matrixing that out and trying to work out what to do with that. So that piece of work is ongoing right now.
Thank you. Good luck.
Awesome. So Steve, you had a question?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions actually, and a couple of them might be just to help some of the board members understand the work up until now. And Jill, hey, great to have you along here, and thanks for all the work you've done up until this point. I know it's really appreciated inside DCC. And fear not, the community and culture papers are actually out now, so they are actually in the public domain.
There you go.
In fact, I've just seen my wife come up from the letterbox with a big envelope, which means they're here. So just a couple of questions in terms of my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm still trying to get my head around this, and I know you know so much more than me. It's my understanding that the 3 areas are healthy homes, the planning and delivery. Is that about right? In terms of the modus operandi, in terms of key areas?
Sort of.
Okay.
So I'm glad to hear those are out, because I've been going to these meetings and saying, you know, they're coming, and it's quite hard to talk about things without actually making them public. There's different things for different areas of the housing continuum. So what I've done is I've grouped them into things like communities, process, advocacy, that sort of stuff, so that we actually have an overarching sort of theme. And then there's comments that people have made to me inside those documents. So there's actual quotes from people and what sorts of things they've said. I don't think any of it will be a horrendous surprise.
Yep.
But the deal is that I've been able, I guess my gift, I guess, has been that I've been seen as a sort of an independent. So I've been getting a whole lot of information around how we could do things that's maybe a little bit different. And I think that's the bit that we've got to look forward to, is how do we proactively problem solve using everybody's, what everybody brings to the table. What's been really surprising to me is that some of our big developers, for example, they'd never heard or never worked through a progressive home ownership, or didn't know how to work out how they could deliver, offer a house for progressive home ownership. So I've been able to introduce people. A couple of the developers I spoke to never heard of universal design. And for any of you who haven't heard of universal design, it's where you design with somebody with a disability in mind. So you build wider doors, not necessarily wet floor showers and so on, but just, ramps to get to the front door, wider doors. And he said, he came back to me later and said the difference between a $7.50 and an $8.50 door is $5. I'll put $8.50 doors in every single one of my buildings from now on. That's massive, because there are people at the moment who are locked out of their own homes waiting for enable funding, which is the funding that changes your home for your accessibility. Because that process can take 18 months. So there's lots of little things we can do that will make a difference to some people, but we're still going to have some considerably big issues that we all need to work together on.
Great, thank you. That was a fantastic answer. I'm sure we'll probably have to repeat this on Tuesday. I guess I asked about healthy homes because I was going to say that aren't we doing quite well as a council in terms of hitting targets? And I think that's a statutory requirement, I think, at some point. I don't know the date.
Yeah.
And secondly, and again, I'll get this wrong, but I'm fairly sure in the long-term plan process, we stuck away maybe 2 million, 2.5. Or,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So council is doing very well. The council, and if you look at that continuum, council properties come under assisted rental. That's where they sit, those DCC properties. They are doing very well. They have assessed, I think, something like, it's in the paper, I think it's 64% of their houses have been assessed for healthy homes, and a number have been completed. There are supply chain issues around things like heat pumps at the moment, which is causing some problems, but that work is ongoing and is on target for all of their homes to be compliant by the time frame, which I think is July 2023, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
There is money set aside for redevelopment, and that's why there's a huge piece of work going on, looking at what land does council own, what does it need to do with each piece of the land, how do we matrix that, what buildings does council actually currently have that need to be they're probably maybe not fit for purpose anymore. So there's a whole lot of work on that stuff that's going on. Once they have completed that, then that long-term planning will take place. My utopia is that we come up with some really creative solutions, because there's some real opportunities for groups to work together, for impact investment, for all sorts of ways that we can actually increase the way that we do things. But that's my utopia.
No, great to hear. And sorry, final question. In terms of the conversations you've been having with stakeholders, firstly, have they been positive? And certainly a topical subject this week for council. I presume Mana Whenua and Matawaka have been front and centre of those conversations?
Yes. So I've spoken to the manager from both Puketeraki and Otago, and have ongoing meetings with Araitiuru, specifically around their Kamatua housing. So yes, their aspirations are definitely included, and they have been making quite regular contact with me. They have, Otago particularly has significant issues with regards to inundation and land ownership. Puketeraki has inundation as well. There's a whole lot of other things that are causing, that are not helping the aspirations of them getting their people home. Alaitiuru are probably the only, Puketeraki has kaumātua housing for one. Alaitiuru have, I think, 8 kaumātua housing there. They're currently going through funding with Te Puna Kōkiri to get them upgraded because they need some upgrades. So yeah, absolutely, mana whenua mātāwaka are being talked to. Happy to talk to anybody who'll talk to me. But yeah, the themes and how have I been received? I've been received genuinely very well. I'm incredibly passionate about getting people into homes or getting people into safe places to sleep, whether that is a home or not. It doesn't bother me as long as the person is getting their needs met. I worked for 11 years in corrections, so I've seen vulnerable workers, vulnerable people, and regardless of how you feel about ex-offenders, when they come out of prison, they are vulnerable. And I don't believe that us as a society across the country are necessarily doing right by them with regards to giving people a safe place to sleep. When I sat down and talked to people at the homeless shelter, I was expecting all sorts of things. You have in your head what you're going to hear. The overwhelming thing that was wanted was access to a public shower. That was it. They didn't want a home. There was no conversation about anything else other than having a shower. And yes, there is the ability to go for a shower at one of the local NGOs every Thursday, but they say that comes with fish hooks. That comes with having to talk to people, having to engage with social workers, and they didn't necessarily want to do that. They just wanted access to a shower. So I think we have to be really mindful that when we talk to people about what their aspirations are, they are very, very different. But yes, I've been received very well.
Great, thanks, Jill. That's awesome work, and see you on Tuesday.
Oh, Janine, you've got your hand up there. No, that's me. Oh, that's you. Oh no, sorry. Wendy had her hand on your picture. Any other questions? Yes, no, Trevor. And then, yep, Duncan, yep. Trevor, you need to unmute yourself there.
Duncan, I'm happy for Duncan to go first.
Okay, Duncan.
Thanks, Trevor. Jill, you've mentioned the kaumātua housing and also the DCC's housing. They're both available to people who are retired or near retirement. Does that mean that you're going to have possibly more of a focus on trying to find stable and safe housing for families, younger people?
Yeah, so the DCC has a in their policies, it's basically around people who are 55 and over, although they do take some younger depending on personal circumstance. Social housing is obviously kāinga ora, and then we need to get into some of that the other areas such as affordable housing. That's a whole nother game of soldiers, and if you want me to talk for another half hour I can, but there's a whole level of affordable housing that needs to happen. I know that the goal from kāinga ora is to build until there is nobody left homeless, nobody left who, so until they're struggling to fill their homes, which wouldn't that be lovely? So the whole idea of getting social housing built, then affordable housing. There are a couple of quite large projects on the books, and they will be mixed use. So there's going to be social housing, affordable housing, and some probably sold to NGOs. So there is some stuff coming. Absolutely.
I'm just in love with everything you've said. Any other questions? Trevor, yes, that's right.
Thanks for coming along and talking to us, Jill. I guess one of the questions I'd like to ask and have asked in the past, and I'm wondering why this is not done. My understanding is that people who live in social housing, and I realise there's a great need for it, if their circumstances changed, they're not means tested. And I guess my question is, I wonder how many people are living in social housing that don't necessarily need to be there anymore. And I wonder if there's some way of means testing those people that move into a house and they see it as a house for life, even though their circumstances have changed.
So putting on my kāinga ora hat, I can answer that. The kāinga ora has no ability to identify who comes into their houses or not. That's all done by the Ministry of Social Development. So the Ministry of Social Development has the ability to review, and what they do is they have housing brokers that help people transition out of kāinga ora houses. There are a small percentage of KO houses which have been held or have been occupied by people with particular needs. So I'm thinking about people who might have a disabled child or something similar. And because those houses have been modified, those houses are at market rent and the people living in them will stay at market rent. But they are a really small number. The other thing that I think possibly people don't understand is that actually anybody who lives in a social house can actually buy it, unless it's in a space where it's going to be redeveloped, where the site's going to be redeveloped. They actually have the ability to buy it. And we've had just recently, a couple of former refugee families who have done exactly that, which is really exciting. So yes, I hear you, but it doesn't sit with kāinga ora. So I can't make comment on MSD's processes.
Thank you.
All righty. So any other questions, anybody? We're all good? No? Yep, good. Oh, Jill, thank you so much. It's wonderful to kind of meet you. And I look forward very much to what comes out of this. And I'm going to send you an email with some ideas.
Awesome.
Yep.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Well, that was a ray of sunshine in our evening. Not that, you collectively aren't rays of sunshine, excuse me. Time for Wendy's report.
Okay, so I'll go over my bits and then let Stephen talk about the Long Beach.
Yep.
Okay, so as you'll see, the project fund stands as a balance of $3,905.91. The board need to be aware that those funds need to be spent or decided on and spent by the 30th of June. So just put your thinking cap on, maybe projects or people out there for funding. So if you get the application and the word out, it'll be really good. You'll see that there's a little bit came back because the board granted $930 for the community awards. The expenses were less than that as well. The other aspect is that the Otago radio access, which Fran alluded to at last meeting, there's a cost of $79.99 for 4 sessions up to the 30th of June. So the board need to pass a resolution to pay that or not pay it. The other thing is
Can we do that now?
Yeah.
Well, I'll move a resolution that we do pay it.
All right, who'd like to second that?
I'll do it.
Oh, is that you, Ange?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ange. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's all of us unanimously passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the 2022-23 annual plan submission consultation period started today. So the word out for the community. Also, the board will need to consider making a submission, and if you're making a submission, what's going to be included in that submission. Then you'll see that I've just added for the board's information the letter that was sent to Aurora Energy that the board agreed to at the last meeting, and just the normal roadworks schedule and the DCC updates. The only other item we've got on this is the Long Beach domain, and we've got Stephen Hogg, who's going to speak to that. So he works at our Parks Rec department.
Welcome, Stephen. Thank you. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so perhaps I could just provide a little bit of background in terms of how the bylaw functions and a little bit of context. So the reserves and beaches bylaw that you mentioned earlier it came in during 2017, and I think at that time there was a call to uphold the requirements of that bylaw, which prohibit vehicles from accessing reserves and beaches spaces. And the bylaw is quite specific in those conditions. So vehicles are prohibited from reserve and beach spaces aside from under certain conditions. One of those exemptions is that, let me just bring it up, is on any part of a reserve or beach set aside by council for vehicular traffic, such as driveways, car parks, and shared paths. So that's the clause that we sort of need to work under there in providing vehicle access to reserve and beach spaces. It needs to be a defined area. It should be obvious when someone's arriving in one of these spaces which area they would be permitted to access in their vehicle and which area they shouldn't. So we've received some feedback requesting greater access for vehicles to the Long Beach domain. Those were generally focused on increasing the provision of car parks. There has been some sentiment about allowing vehicles complete access to the reserve area. As I said, though, that would be difficult for us to define without essentially designating the entire domain to be a vehicle accessible or a vehicle access way. The options that we've presented there, those are what we, based on some of that feedback, some options that we considered would be worthy of further investigation. There'd be quite a few considerations to work through there in terms of district plan requirements, costs, those sorts of things. So that's essentially how we've got to this point.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephen. And I bet there'll be a question or two. Anybody?
Oh, I'm quite happy to kick off first, Fran, if that's okay.
Okay, go for it, Trevor.
Stephen, it looks to me like you're proposing 33 car parks. Is that correct?
So one thing that probably should have gone out with those options documents there is that those are not to scale at all. When it comes to things like scale, we'd need to work quite closely with our transport department to ensure that any new parks were appropriate sizes, turning radiuses were accounted for, lane corridors were the right size. So in terms of how many new car parks we could accommodate there, we'd probably have to look at first the impact on the reserve space, obviously, how much we were prepared to set aside, and then what limitations there might be under the district plan or physical limitations that could include cost or trees or those sorts of things. And then in terms of how many car parks you could get out of a space like that, it would come down to the dimensions provided by the transport department.
Are you aware that this park was originally developed by the locals?
I don't know the history of the domain too intimately.
Okay. So I guess from my point of view, I am well aware that that all these parks are not being used in the manner that they used to be. I think that we've used the sledgehammer in this case to crack a walnut, and I think what was done was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I was a policeman down in Port Chalmers for over 10 years, and over those years there was very, very little damage done, and a lot of groups used to have a great time down there, including a car club that I was involved with. We used to go and have our picnics there with our vintage cars. We used to have field trials and all sorts of things. A lot of the locals came and participated. We can't do that anymore, and we don't go there anymore. I'm also aware of many other groups that wanted to do the same. They can't use it anymore. I'm also aware that as soon as chains go up, notices go up, they get ripped down. So obviously the locals are very upset about it and are pretty ticked off that they can't use it. I think it's an absolute waste of money looking at what you're going to do. You're happy to dig up one end of the domain to shove some car parks there. It doesn't need doing. It just needs the
Point of order, Madam Chair, point of order. Sorry, we are in question time, and I think that's a lot of leverage for a question.
Yeah, right, I forget it.
Yep, thank you. Anything else, Trevor?
No, there's no point.
Duncan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do now. Stephen, are you aware that those rocks that have been put down to stop vehicles from accessing the grass don't actually stop vehicles from accessing the grass? So what's effectively happened is that the law-abiding people struggle to get a car park space. People who don't give a stuff about the rules can just drive over the shrubs and get onto the grass anyway.
Yes, we are aware of that, and there's, as my understanding is, there's actually quite good vehicle access to those grassed spaces. Some of those access points to the grass we left completely unimpinged, and we put a sign up that said, "Please don't drive on the grass." So I think the hope there was that we'd provide some demarcation as to where we wanted those vehicles to be. So the rocks were placed along the edge of the existing car parks on both sides. So I think that was the reason for that. With regard to retaining vehicle access and things like events as well, we often provide, we often cater for events in our reserve spaces through the discretionary consent process. So whether that's a lifeguard racing event or a wedding or a multi-sport event, a car club event, you name it, we receive requests for these quite regularly and permit a lot of them to go ahead, as you've probably noticed around the city. So I'm not sure whether we've received any for Long Beach recently, but it's certainly something that we would put through our regular consent process, and you know, for certain types of events, we will sometimes steer them towards the most suitable space for that event. Through that process, we'll look at what the event entails, how many people are like to show up, whether the facilities are adequate to cater to that event, what the impact's likely to be on the reserve physically, and the impact on other users. So it shouldn't really be what's in place there now, and anything in the future shouldn't really impinge on people's ability to have events in the space.
Another question there, Duncan.
The Dunedin City Council undertakes to get the views of everyone who lives in Long Beach about vehicle access to the domain, and it turns out overwhelmingly that the Long Beach residents do want to have vehicle access to the domain. Are you going to listen to them?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, we'd be required to ensure that whatever we did was not going up against our own bylaw. So we'd have to be clear, we'd have to make sure that any solution was something that made sense to the average user arriving on the beach, or sorry, on the domain, and was also consistent with the way we approach other reserve spaces around the city. I can't really speak to anything involving that kind of decision making. That would be one for Mr. McLean to answer.
Thank you, Stephen. Steve Walker, Councillor Walker, off you go.
Yes, Stephen, thank you for coming along tonight, and thanks for your work on this. I know how frustrating it can be. So just first question is, I think you are aware, I'll just ask anyway, you are aware that the reason for getting it blocked off in the first place was actually community advocacy. Forgive me, I don't know when it was. It was a number of years ago.
Yes, I think it probably would have been around late 2019 from memory.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So secondly, and I mean, this is where I guess the solution will or will not lie. We have the 217 beaches and reserves bylaw, and we also, not to mention, we have a district plan obligations and requirements. So in your mind, is it incumbent on us, and however we do that, and I think Duncan's suggestion is what is feasible in terms of ascertaining the opinions of the public, is it incumbent on us to come up with some sort of solution, however that looks, that best gives the best outcome for the desires of the group now advocating for this, that also don't in any way, and I think it's imperative, don't in any way impinge on the requirements of that bylaw and the district plan, because once, as you know, we get into precedent setting, we are, you know, it's open slather.
Yes, I think that sounds reasonable, and also we'd need to consider management plans and what the future of the reserve with regard to biodiversity and the types of uses we might be able to imagine in that space.
Thank you.
Okie doke. Any other questions? Stephen, thank you so much, and you will definitely be hearing from us again. Okie doke. I'd like to move that we accept the Governance Support Officer's report. Have I got a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Ange. And all those in favour? Everybody's in favour?
Aye.
Anybody against? Or did you put your hand up, Trevor? Yeah. Cool. Passed. I declare all that carried. Time for board updates. Let's start with, hang on, I'll just find the list. Thank you very much, Wendy, you were awesome. Port Noise Liaison Committee, Jackie and Christina. I'm going to assume that one of you made it to the meeting.
Yes, I did go to the meeting. Not much to report. There was a couple of the noise monitoring things had been found to be not working for quite a few months, so that'll be underway to get repaired. That's pretty much all on that front there. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thank you very much, Jackie. Ravensdown, Trevor.
There's the only thing really of particular interest is that it would appear that the ships are getting bigger to deliver bulk fertiliser to Ravensdown now, and they're using 190-metre ships and above, and unfortunately those ships can't come up the channel, and as a result they're going to be unloading at the Port Chalmers Wharf. And of interest is that there's a ship coming in on the 1st of April, or maybe as late as the 2nd, and they're going to be working 24/7 to unload the boat, which is probably not going to go down that well with some of the residents. But the other options were to probably work a lot longer from, I think it was 7 AM to 10 PM at night. So they've opted to get the job done as quickly as possible with the least disruption, and probably working through the night is from a traffic point of view is probably better, but the noise may upset some of the residents, and I understand that. All the drivers have been spoken to regarding maximum speed, so the speed's got to be kept down and no exhaust brakes. So I don't know what the rest of you think of that, but it's not something that they're happy with, but I think they're between a rock and a hard place.
Thank you, Trevor. I do have just a bit of input there. As far as Ravensbourne is concerned, if the ship comes in tomorrow or the next day, there are major roadworks happening between 6 PM to 6 AM, which will ensure that those trucks are going 30 Ks. And for almost Ravensbourne from, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, man who lives in Ravensbourne, from the post office building to just before, just after Ravensdown when you're going from town. So it's just where Ravensdown, you look over and you see the rugby club, and then the 30K zone is from there to just before. So you know, it is, as you say, Trevor, rock and a hard place, and there's no solution for this because the wharf can't sustain it, can't sustain those ships, and also the channel is not deep enough to bring those ships down to that wharf, even if the wharf was redeveloped. So I don't know what kind of solution can happen there.
Well, the pilots are refusing to bring them in up the channel at that length, but my understanding is that there are going to be some major upgrades to the wharf at Ravensdown for other ships. So it's only the 190 metre and above that they won't bring up. But I guess from the noise point of view is that, as you rightly point out, that there are roadworks at the moment 24/7. So if it's all going on together, you know, it's probably a good thing it's all done and dusted there and then. But obviously there's going to be these ships coming in the future, and I'm not sure how they're going to end up addressing it, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yep, that is what it is. Okay, so moving on to number 3, Christina, keep Dunedin beautiful.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Right.
Everybody,
So-
yes, everybody's good. Yes, good.
Yep.
Beautiful.
I attended the first meeting on the 14th of February, and what came out of it was Mandy Mayhem from the Waitati was going to be attending the Keep Dunedin Beautiful Awards in Wellington on Thursday, the 17th of February, and Wellington ended up winning that. So that was really exciting for them. There's been a lot of concerns around the amount of graffiti around Dunedin, and Task Force Green had been working hard to try and keep on top of that, and Countdown continues to clean up their own property, so it's not a concern of Task Force Green. Also, there's a lot of litter around the bus hub at the moment, and it's actually was getting worse. So Ash from the DCC was going to check in with the Otago Regional Council about their policies regarding that, and it extended right up to where the buses go near that music shop on Moray Place to Christchurch and Queenstown. So there was going to be an update on the 11th of April when we have our next meeting. There was a lot of discussion around having these meetings via Zoom rather than in person, and different options that were available even when we come out of the red alert level. The preference is actually that people quite like the Zoom meetings and would prefer to have them that way, even when it is safer to attend, well, you know, when we can actually attend in person. And so they asked me what had been going on the board, and so I just gave an update regarding the shared path cycleway, because people from all around Dunedin are watching with interest about how it's all coming along and the deadline that is October. So the next meeting is in a couple of weeks, so I'll be attending that via Zoom again.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. Anybody got any input for Christina? No, we're all good. Ange, you having a cat time there? Okay, my turn. I'll take the next 3. So Otago Access Radio. I've done 2 of, I think 2 or maybe 3 of those, because I'm so sorry, both Duncan and Ange, I've been so busy, it didn't even occur to me to get schedule and ask you to help out. As it turns out, the other day I was able to do it in my car while I was taking my middle son into the hospital. And when was that? It was not yesterday. Anyway, I was taking him somewhere. So I talked to Jeff this time about the funding. So I put it out there, and I'll just slide it in there for everybody here that if any, you know, put it out to your networks. We've got $3,500 and that we'd love to give away, and worthy projects, please bring them in. And I mentioned that on there. And also don't forget there's $1,000 in scholarships. So $1,000 for scholarships and what, 2,300, that leaves 2,300, yeah. So that leaves 2,300. I also talked to Jeff about the, you know, the roadworks thing that's going on. We've got major works going on in Port Chalmers and Wycliffe Terrace. So, part of Wycliffe will be closed for a month. What else did we talk about? We talked about, I can't remember right now, but I will send the link to you all. It should be up there now. And I've been putting them on Facebook. So they've been, some of them, sometimes people listen to them, sometimes they don't. So that moves me on to Facebook, where I think we have 988 followers. I was looking at that just before. I think that's correct. That has increased a bit. So I've been scheduling posts for people to see them early in the morning and see them in the evening. And sometimes that gets a good amount of people liking them, sharing them, and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm just going to assume that it's what the post is. For example, the last one I put up was about the ORC half price bus fares, yay, which starts tomorrow, which is fantastic. Yep, so it's actually 909 followers. Be great if y'all started sharing the page. I know you do, Duncan, and you do, Jackie. That's great. And just you know, get people in there and liking it so that we can you know, make the community wider on that weird platform that is Facebook. Alberton beautification project, nothing to really add there. Just some weeding's been done, some fruit eating has happened. Nobody new has joined our group, but that's okay. We're just trucking along.
Sorry, can the people who have got their mics not switched off, please switch them off, please?
That'll be Jackie and Ange, please.
Dog howling in the background.
No.
Oh, that's here.
Steve, there's drilling in the building.
It's not me.
Yeah, there's drilling in the building and sanding, and there was vacuuming just before. But at least we have no seagulls tonight.
Sounds like a dog.
Yes, we've got the curtains shut so that if the family's out there, they can just be by themselves. Okie doke, number 7, Arabawana Liaison, Ange Mackerlane, you're up. Oh, no, turn yourself back on there, woman.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Hello.
Yeah. Sorry, I've dropped the ball there a bit actually this month. I've just been so busy and I haven't actually had a chance to make contact with them. But we'll do that for the next meeting.
Okay, beautiful. And Vision?
And Vision, well, Vision is in the process of transferring money over to the new Seafood Festival Committee account because they've set themselves up as a incorporated society. And so we're sort of just in the process of doing that. And we've got a couple of issues about GST, but we'll get that sorted. And the problem we've got, of course, with no cruise ships and COVID, and you know, people having accidents and stuff, just having an AGM is actually really impossible right now because there's just not enough people to do that. So it's kind of, I think what's going to happen is that we'll end up in recess for a few months. So yeah, we'll know a bit more about that soon.
Thank you very much, Ange. And so next up is the plaques that Duncan and I have been working on together. So we had a Zoom catch up, and we're forming a group basically, and Duncan has done, well, actually Duncan's done most of the work, so maybe Duncan should tell us a little bit about what we've done. Thanks, Duncan.
Mainly what we've been doing is just reaching out to people who we think would have something to contribute to the project. So we've got Bill Dacker, who's a Port Chalmers historian, is keen to work with us. We've got Peter from the Union Cafe, Pete Cole, is going to work with us. I was talking to Ange about it, and she's come up with a whole lot of really helpful ideas. And we're reaching out to Mana Whenua. I don't know how that's gone, Fran. And just yesterday, I was talking to Sean Brosnahan, who's the curator of Toitu Otago Settlers Museum. And he has offered to proofread and fact check all the write-ups before they go to the printers, which is just great.
Cool. So yeah, that's us. So we're working on it, and yes, the mana whenua will of course be brought in a little bit when we've got more of an idea of what we want to do. And I did talk with Rachel Wesley some months ago about my own personal project of getting us a history for our community plan, which I will have by the next meeting. It will be in the community plan, and we can have a good look at that document and then begin to be a bit proud of it instead of embarrassed by it. Okay, so yeah, that's that. So number 10, the education liaison. Christina.
Thank you. I had a really good catch up with Anik from the roading department at the DCC about 4 weeks ago, and we decided that I would contact the local schools in the area about concerns around roading outside the schools, speed limits, speed bumps, all those sorts of things. So the local schools, unfortunately, have been hit really badly with COVID. So that has been their main priority at this stage, is actually just keeping their students and their staff well enough to be able to staff a school. So that is my update, unfortunately, for this time, is that I don't have any updates around the roads outside the schools as they deal with this COVID outbreak amongst the children. So I will be back in contact with them in the next couple of weeks. So we'll provide another update next time.
Great, thank you, Christina. So
Thank you.
In my report, I'll bring Janine in, and because we've done a little bit of work on that very thing this past 3 to 4 weeks. Okie doke. Jackie, Long Beach and Purakau Nui Amenity Society, and then why don't you just segue into the West Harbour Emergency Response Group? Thank you.
So the Long Beach and Purakau Amenity Societies are two different amenity societies, just to clarify that. So in Purakau at the moment, they've been juggling their fun day, which has been traditionally for decades held on New Year's Day. So that didn't go ahead this year. They're hoping it's going to go ahead in Easter. And the gravel laying, which is a continuous thing on the track, will also be going ahead in the next couple of weeks as well. Long Beach have they've been having some new input because the hall committee is now actually a proper committee. So dear Edna Wheeler now gets to actually relax and put her feet up, and there's a new hall committee. And they're trying to get new activities going at the Long Beach Hall, like they're trying to be like a mini Port Chalmers over there and get their own Zumba and Pilates and things like that going there. They've got Halo coming to talk to them, I think about next week or so, about the boardwalk, which is called Source to Sea, and it is going down the south end of Long Beach, and it's so this boardwalk goes over kind of a wetlands area, and there's going to be planting for birds, and which will also filter runoff from the estuary. And of course, they did mention their concerns about the rocks and wanting to have that opened up again. So yeah, emergency response group, we're going really well on that. We've had one meeting and also an informal meeting just last week where Andy and I got together and met the new Port Otago health and safety rep and security, Kerry McIver. So we had a good chat to her about how we can work together in the case of a major event with Port Otago once they're all secure. We've been working on the phone tree so that in the event of any large event, I can get input from everyone from Ravensbourne, Maya, all the way through to Osborne, Purakau, Long Beach, to get in touch with them so I can feed back information to Civil Defence about what's going on. We still haven't managed to get the key to the town hall, however, which has been just an ongoing comedy of errors, really. However, it's all well underway, and I'm also liaising with the Waitati Blueskin emergency response group as well, and I'm going over there next Tuesday to participate in the community group where we're going to be rehearsing fire evacuation and also going over emergency response plans that they've got over there as well. So we're working together, and I'm well underway with writing the emergency response plan, but that won't be completed until we actually have there's a template that we've got to now put that, a new template that we've got to put that into. And there's a lot of updating, there's legacy paperwork that civil defence are actually, quite frankly, embarrassed that we've even got to work with. So we're really doing an awful lot of updating. And I've been in touch with all of the schools in the West Harbour, just asking them all what their emergency response plans are and whether or not their parents and everyone is actually in the loop about what they are. So it's all very well to have one in the drawer, but if no one knows about it, it's not much use. So and the ones that have got them fully functioning, just asking if they'd be prepared to share those with the rest of them, just to share the ideas on it. And also for them to put the Gets Ready notice in their school newsletters, which they've all been happy to do. They would like some some sort of kits really around it, so as well, and to be able to involve the children in emergency preparedness as well. So I've kind of been tackling it from the schools. As they'll sort of be natural hubs in a way. There's actually no, it used to be that schools would be a nominated civil defence hub. That's all gone by the by, and that doesn't actually currently exist. So it's just a lot of updating and replanning and formulating procedures around it. So it's pretty exciting to work on, and yeah, we're getting all collaborative with other emergency response groups.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jackie. I just have one thing I wanted to say. The Know Your Neighbours document that we did last year. How would you feel about me giving you a bunch of those to give to the schools? Because it might, new people coming into the schools might want to take one away. It's got everything, everything that we put on it last year, including, the Gets Ready link.
Yeah, well, yeah. We certainly might. I mean, if they're already around, I wouldn't print any extra ones. Just
no. We've
got some to use up. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've got lots to use up, so it will be great.
All right.
Okay. Trevor, policing. Unmute yourself, please.
I apologise for that. I'm a bit slow. It's the same old, really. I've been down there heaps of times, and is there any police still there? And I'm wondering whether it would be better if somebody took that over, bearing in mind that they'll be in Port Chalmers a lot more than what I will, because every time I'm there, there's just no one at the station. So I don't know what you think about that.
Okay, I think that's probably a good idea, and maybe the people who live in Port Chalmers, Christina, Jackie, Ange, and myself, we could just kind of co-do it, because then we see somebody down there and we'll just go and have a chat. How do you feel about that, everybody? That's it there, just because, I'd say I'd do it, and then I'd never see anybody, and Ange would say she'll do it, and yeah.
I'm happy. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Good with that.
Yeah, I've got to chat to them anyway for the emergency response group. So I'm
beautiful.
Now, can I just make a comment?
Yes.
About that. I saw Steve one day at the garage, and I said to him that what's happening, because no one's ever there, and he said, well, the whole idea of community policing has now gone out the window. They said North East Valley, they haven't had a community police person for months, maybe even years, and he said that he could be anywhere in the city at any one time, but he does have sometimes down here for a couple of days a week on and off. They're not interested in actually having someone to replace him, but periodically somebody does drive around and they open the station for an hour or something like that, and that's about it. But it seems like they've dropped us really. So I'm not particularly impressed. And he suggested that we get the district commander person actually come to the board meeting and explain their position, because they've never come back and said, well, this is all changed and this is why and this is how you can make it work. So I would suggest that we do get that person to come.
Yep, let's do that. So Wendy, you can invite him, can't you? Can you do that? Or yep, Wendy will do that.
Great.
And
We've gone from, I think it's 5 and a sergeant to 0, obviously, and I just think it's a pretty poor show.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things that Steve said, of course, was that he's pretty aware of the troublemakers and down here, and really, you know, because we're quite safe and nothing really happens. And I said, well, when the cruise ships come back, as they will, probably later in the year, he said, well, yeah, that's great, but they won't put somebody here just because there are cruise ships. So,
okay.
You know,
Right, well, we'll have whoever it is, and we'll grill them, as it were.
good idea.
Okie doke. Thank you, everybody, for those great updates, and I would like to move that we note those updates.
Yep, second.
Thank you, Steve. All those in favour? Beautiful. That's all of us. That is carried. And now it's my turn as the chairperson. Okay, I've got a few things. First one, annual plan feedback, please. So just so we're all aware that this isn't a big one where we can put in new things. We are going to be talking pretty much to what we have already to what we've already been asking for. So if anybody wants to be any of those things to be expanded upon, then by all means, please email me those things. We will write the submission that I'll give to council when the time comes, whether it's in person or on Zoom, who knows? So yes, and so basically the things in the annual plan that we have been asking about are upgrade of the main street, which Janine updated on us on earlier. We're still on that list, but we're not that high on it. There is the swimming pool issues there with, you know, asking once again if it can be opened a bit later in the season. And we've got our toilets, but we could always say we could use more toilets, so we can just keep that in there. So those are really the three things. Steve thinks that's a bad idea. Well, you know, can but ask. We need some at Aramawana, or we need one at Aramawana. So yeah, maybe DOC and ORC and the DCC can pay for one of those. Who knows? And I think that is all that was is in our submission so far. And so the next time we submit will be, I'm assuming, will be next year for a big one. So next year is a big one, and that we can expand a bit then if we feel that way inclined. And just keeping in mind, everybody, that there are things that we can, you know, start rolling now, like making sure that everybody's favorite subject and vegetation, that sort of thing, keeps rollingly happening. So yeah, email me if you have anything you want me to talk about within those three areas. All right, good, beautiful. Next is that I want to talk about is the Otago Access Radio. Duncan, could you do the next one, please? And I'll find out the date of that. Is that possible, or are you doing school drop-offs?
I'm keen to do it, but can you let me know when it is? And I can...
Yeah, I will. Yeah, well before the day before, I promise. I'll get the dates from Jeff and let you know. Beautiful. Thank you very much. And Ange, you are now working, I'm assuming, so you wouldn't be available.
probably not, because I'm sort of in transit about that time. But then again, if I know, I can just stay in the car when I've parked up at the hospital and deal with it then.
Okay, so yeah, we've just got 2 to go, so it may be that I do the last one anyway, because that'll be this particular board configuration's last go on Otago Access Radio. Okay, next up in my report thing here, I had a chat with Kevin on Thursday last week. Everybody, of course, knows about the Sims building and how staff, councils agreed to some mitigation along their trees and the removal, correct me if I'm wrong, please, Steve, the removal of the asbestos as well at the back of the building. Those are the 2 things, right? Yes. Okay. And Port Otago is going to be doing the geotech assessment on the bank to make sure that it is safe. Their car parks being well used. Some people are forgetting and just automatically parking in Mount Street, but they're getting there with going around to that car park, and they're putting in charging stations as well for those staff members who have electric cars, and the retaining wall behind the car park, if anybody's seen that, is going to be planted and made to look much better than it is, and they did that in conjunction with the residents up on that bank. Port Otago is working in the very beginning stages of a harbour plan with ORC and council, and I don't know anything about the rest of that, although I would encourage each and every one of you to, when that comes to light, to get in there personally and ask them to put in a plan for collecting rubbish that comes off out of the city into the harbour, something, yeah. So yeah, that's just in its planning status, so I can't really talk any more to that. The dog park is happening. They're just waiting on some agreements. Councillor Walker might know a little bit about that. I'm not too sure. I've got a vague plan at home, so what I'll do is there was no point bringing it here and holding it up. I'll scan it and email it to you all so you can have a wee look at what it's going to look like. And just speaking to that, in that area where they're building the dog park, they own most of that land, and DCC owns 2 small pieces of it. And so that might be where the negotiating is happening. And Duncan, I think that's the only land that council owns on that hillside. So what was the next one? I think that was everything to do with Port Otago. Next up, Janine, can you help me out with talking about the, so I got an email from Port Otago School asking for some speed mitigation around the school, because it's a rural school and you can go 80 k's, and that's really totally not a good thing. And so thus started what Janine can talk about now.
So what has happened is that the Wakakotahi NZTA have created a new rule around speed management. So that is essentially where it's not mandated, but all schools will need to be, urban schools will need to be 30 kilometres an hour past the school gates by, 40% of them have to be done by 2024, and then 100% of them probably have to be done by 2027, which is the next National Land Transport Fund. At this point, we are unclear what the speed will be past schools in rural areas, but it will be reduced.
Right.
And we have to go around all the schools in Dunedin to start off with, because it's clear for the urban schools. Put up signs that say 30 kilometres an hour, monitor them, and then if it doesn't, if we're not getting the speeds down, we have to put in physical infrastructure like speed bumps, those sorts of things. So at this point, don't know what the rural speed limit will be, but it will be reduced.
Great, thank you for that. And also, I've been email corresponding with Rachel from Putakanui School, and so staff are in on that as well. So we'll keep you updated on that. We might be able to do some interim things, and the school has put their hands up for the sooner rather than later, please. And the only other thing I want to talk about is Anzac Day. So Anzac Day is now happening this year, as it were. We can have a gathering if we feel that way inclined. And so I will get in touch with Pete Cole, because he knows the ins and outs of all of it. And I will also get hold of Stephen and Elise from the cadets, because they of course always do something. And so I'll let you all know by email what's happening with that, because that was just 2 days ago when the chairs all got emails from Polly Martian. So we'll do the wreath and etc. It'll be in Chalmers Place. And I'm assuming it'll be the usual time, I think, of 10 a.m. I think that's when it happens. I can't, it's been a few years since I attended. Jackie, you attended last year, yes?
Yes, I did, which was, I was told it was to be the wreath laying, but in fact, lucky I ran into Peter Cole a few days beforehand, because it was down on the program that I was representing the community board, doing the introduction and welcome of the, so first up on the podium. So luckily Peter Cole briefed me of what was required for that, and it was really enjoyable. It was, and the old fellas came over and all said hello, and it was lovely. Yeah.
Great. So we'll be doing that again this year, and I guess I'll be there because I can be there. So I'll do that, and I'll let all of you know the time and things if you feel inclined to attend. I think that is everything from me. We will be working on the Long Beach thing via email, and if any of you want to be in on any of that correspondence, pop your hand up now and I'll add you to the list. Jackie and Duncan, and I'll send it to all of you. Trevor, do you want to know too, don't you? Okay, well, I'll just CC everybody into all of those things so that you can have cognition of that. Okie doke. That's me. I would like to move that you accept my report.
Just before you do that, Fran, I'm just wondering why we don't just make an agenda item next board meeting, like I'm talking about an agenda item, so that we can actually discuss it at length, and if we have a mind to make it to make a change, perhaps do that.
Yes, well, that would be my question after Steve's report. Items for consideration by the chair.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that.
Have you moved, seconded your report?
No, I've just, we'll do that. I moved it. Do I have a second?
Yep.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Walker. All those in favour?
Right.
Everybody's happy with that? Beautiful, thank you very much. Carried unanimously. Councillor Walker. Council activities, please.
Yep.
You've been very active.
Yeah. I'll try and be as brief as I can. So I've got a lamb curry in the slow cooker. I thought we'd be out of here by now. And just going back to your suggestion about putting toilets in the annual plan request, just to remind the board that if you remember in the long-term plan, thankfully, after a lot of efforts by councillors, there was a 10-year list of toilets that would be progressed to a year in the 10 years of the 10-year plan. We were just fortunate enough, obviously, to get we were second cab off the rank. So just be aware that list exists, and it likely won't change. Just be grateful that we were very early on in that for the toilets in Leonards. Second thing is annual plan. You've mentioned that, Madam Chair. Thank you for doing that. that opened today, and I think it's open till the 22nd of April, slightly different to normal years. Although I'm quite looking forward to it. Actually, it might actually garner some more feedback in a way that we haven't traditionally gotten. And something came up today. We had a councillor, CEO, ELT meeting today, and just to let you know that there will be an announcement either today or early next week around the mandates, around how council meets, and obviously that's in light of the new settings announced by the government. So I'm sure community boards will be CC'd into any information that comes out tomorrow or Monday. But I'm suspecting there'll be some change, and fingers crossed we might be able to sit in a room together at some point relatively soon. In terms of the meeting on Tuesday, it was dominated by one thing, but there was a couple of other things on there of interest. In that meeting, we made the decision on the voting order for the next, the upcoming local elections. If you remember, that was changed probably 2 trienniums ago to arrange the names on the voting ballot in random order rather than alphabetically, and that was based obviously on lots of international research that showed there was bias in favour of those who had a surname towards the beginning of the alphabet. And there'll be no surprise that the motion to randomise it was moved and seconded by myself and Andrew Wiley with W's as surnames. So that was moved and carried, and I think quite logically. I mean, it feeds on and uses research. Obviously, the big decision we made on Tuesday was, and it was very fraught. It's been a fraught few weeks around the decision by council previously to join a group. This is around the Three Waters reforms, and it was to join a group called I call them C4LD. I'm so used to it now. I don't even know what that means, but I can remember what C4LD is. But the mayor brought a motion to rescind that, and obviously it's quite controversial, but it's within the rights of standing orders to do that. And that, after a lot of robust discussion, was rescinded. And I think, unfortunately, in the meeting, and this often happens, that a lot of councillors, I think, moved away from the motion on the table to a generic relitigation of the Three Waters debate, which has been had before and will be had again. So remembering that the motion in front of us was basically to demonstrate our commitment to Te Tiriti and partnership with Mana Whenua. So I think it's worth remembering that the focus was on that. So a lot of the subsequent discussion, particularly on social media, reverted back to the discussion around Three Waters. And funnily enough, I don't think it's often reported that most of us around the council table pretty much agree on many of the issues of the reform. And it's on record and there for everyone to see that there's been unanimous votes, in essence, critiquing and condemning the government, and I'm one of them. So it was unfortunate the debate got into something other than the motion on the table. I'm happy to answer questions around that, but as long as those questions do relate to the motion rather than getting into a generic Three Waters reform debate, which I'm also happy to do off piece with anyone, anytime. And always remember that about any issues around the council table, I'm always happy to have discussions. But I will say there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's very complicated. And I think, to be honest, a lot of people commenting on the Three Water reforms, I'd probably argue 99% of them have no idea what the reforms are about. And I'd probably argue quite strongly, if I was to walk out into the street tomorrow and ask people what the Three Waters were, less than 10% of people could name them. So yeah, so that's really it from Tuesday's meeting. As ever, happy to take and answer questions.
Thank you, Steve. And I, for one, am very pleased that you voted the way you did. Any questions for Councillor Walker? Duncan.
Steve, recently Councillor O'Malley was saying that all Dunedin City councillors and Otago regional councillors are going to get together for the first time ever to talk about how you can cooperate to get a better bus service in Dunedin. Have you got any update on that?
Yeah, good reminder, actually. It's always hard when I come to these board meetings remembering what we've done, which is lots, and that's one of them. We met last Friday, which was very successful, and actually subsequent to that, Andrew Noon drove out to Port Chalmers and had a walk around Back Beach with him, actually, to just, he wanted to catch up some other generic stuff. So yep, the meeting went well. Unfortunately, the mayor couldn't make it. He had to cancel with 10 minutes to go. Again, go figure, he got critiqued for that, but people failed to realize that his son was diagnosed with COVID 10 minutes before the meeting. So I think that was a good reason to put his attention elsewhere. Yep, it was very useful, and we've committed to meeting regularly, and there'll be some sort of informal agreement drawn up between the two CEOs, so Sarah Gardner and Sandy Graham, as to how those meetings work going forward. And the reason for that is to make sure they're just not talk fests, so that there'll be a structure to them to make sure we can progress things. And actually it moved beyond just talking about buses, and that meeting now will be about lots of things that ORC do and DCC do that cross over. So it was very useful, and will continue. So thank you for the question.
I've to another related question. Is there any enthusiasm or possibility on the part of Dunedin City Council to contribute financially to the bus services so that Dunedin bus users can get a decent, reliable service at peak times?
I'm always very cautious giving an answer on behalf of my fellow peers, and definitely giving an answer on behalf of the CEO and the operational side. I do know that early on in the triennium, and that'll be on record, there was a council meeting where we did, I think it might have gone as far as passing a motion to suggest that we would be willing to contribute to a fare reduction. This was prior to the $2 coming in. And my understanding is, and Janine, you can correct me, that the OSC decided not to take up that offer. That's my understanding. Yep, and Janine's giving a thumbs up. So that sort of answers your question.
Sadly, yeah. Thanks.
Yep. Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you very much, Councillor Walker. It is always good to hear what's going on around the table. Pardon? Yes, good. I'll second that. All those in favour? Every one of us. Beautiful. We come to the end-ish bit of the meeting here where anybody have any items? We're going to pop Long Beach on there. Councillor Walker?
Yeah, so going back to talking to the Long Beach part, I'm glad nobody is burdening staff by asking for a report to come back to us. So thank you, fellow members. But I think what it's probably worth doing, and I'm a great believer in, there's always a middle ground to be had somewhere. And I think we do have to caution against a petition. And I think that's just us covering ourselves. It seems there is a desire to change something, but we have to be aware of the fact that we are very much bound, whether we like it or not. And there's bylaws in this city I don't like, but they exist. They exist for a reason. And so does our district plan. But I do believe if we have sensible off-piece conversations, and I would certainly delegate the chair and probably one other, perhaps maybe somebody like Duncan, who seems to have been involved in this situation, to have serious sit-down conversations with Scott to see where that middle ground can be found. I think that would be a good place to progress. And going back to what Trevor said, to bring whatever comes out of that to the next meeting. I just think that would be a sensible and more nimble and more efficient way of doing it than asking staff to go off and do a report. Because they're very busy at the moment, and when that comes back, we don't know. So this can be done really quickly and nimbly. And
absolutely.
I think I sense there is a willingness amongst Stephen and Scott to find a halfway somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. The emails that I've been having over the last couple of weeks with Scott and now Stephen, yeah, So I'll start that up again. It won't be tomorrow. It'll be Sunday night. And I'll include all of you in it. And then I think it's a really good idea to have Duncan there, and maybe even Jackie in, because she'll be talking to the Amenities Society. But we'll just play that construction by ear and see how we go. All right. But I'll CC every one of you into the emails that I send. All right.
If we're going to do that, I'd really like Len and Barry to be invited to participate in the meeting too, please.
What can you email? Can you send me their email, please?
I'll try and find it. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh no, we've got it. Sorry. Yeah, we've got it. No, we're good. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, can I interject there? I think initially you should caution against inviting the public. I don't think there's any reason why they can't be informed of what comes out of a meeting and or be invited to subsequent meetings. But I really think if you're going to progress this in the way I was maybe suggesting, that initially, I think it wouldn't be helpful to have them at an initial meeting.
Yeah, I think I agree with Steve, just because we need to find the framework under which this can actually happen, you know, and absolutely for sure, everybody is not going to be happy, and because that can never happen in any situation. I don't think. I don't know, chocolate maybe, but you know, domain removal, whatever. I think we need to have a framework first where Barry and Len can then be brought in to say, what do you think? Okay.
Well, as long as we're just not doing this in isolation from the affected parties, that's good.
Well, no, of course not. Well, we will be talking to them, because that's why we're here, and we'd be a total and utter and complete waste of time if we were to just go, oh, let's just do that. No, absolutely, Duncan. We're here because of them. We're in this Long Beach place because of them, no other reason, and it would be stupid to not include them. So yes. Any other items for consideration?
So just carrying on from that, from what Duncan's saying, is who are you identifying as the affected parties?
Well, we can ascertain that via email if you don't mind, Trevor, because of course the car club is one of them. And am I right?
Well, it's not just the car club that I was involved with. There's certainly other car clubs as well, but that's fine. I suppose it's just, I'm just questioning what you're saying. That's fine. Just go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think we have to work out the framework under which some version of what people want can happen. Because there's legal constraints, bylaws, district plans that have to be followed, you know? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Can I just say,
there just is.
Can I just say one thing related to Trevor's point there? So at the moment, under the bylaw and the district plan, nothing can happen. But I think if we have grown-up conversations with the right people in the room, something can happen. And again, going to Duncan's point, if the two people who came today get pretty much most of what they want, that's a good outcome. But at the moment, under the bylaw and the district plan, the council has every right to do nothing. But I don't think it's intransigent. I don't get the impression that that's what it wants to do. So let's try and find where that best halfway, ground can be found. And to be fair, that probably wouldn't have happened with councils 20 years ago. But it's more the will of the operational side of the council now to be more willing to look for solutions rather than put up walls. So let's try and find the best solutions and the best outcomes within a framework. At the moment, it doesn't allow for anything.
Okay, let's leave that there. All right. Now, any other items? Anybody?
I was just wondering what's happening. Remember a couple of meetings ago, I brought up about Blueskin Road coming down the hill above Kerry's Bay, and the fact that several people have said to me, and actually just recently, about you're coming right down the hill towards, where you turn to go round the corner by the monument, and how, there's this fabulous view in front of you, which, they get distracted by.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
there's no barriers on the left there.
Yeah, sure. So I had a conversation with Janine about this. And there would have been reports a few years back, and they just, Janine, correct me if I'm wrong, does Delta not look going through those roads on a weekly basis?
Delta
right?
or Fulton Hogan?
Oh, sorry, Fulton Hogan. Yes, it's Fulton Hogan.
Yeah, it should be, yes.
Yeah, okay. So we can clear that one up via email, Ange, all right? So I'll put that down on my list here.
So I just think that, you know, obviously people are starting to move around again.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
People who are so used to that road, they don't even think about it. You know, I think, oh yeah, no problem, you know. But it's the people who aren't familiar with it or coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, sure thing. I will keep you, I'll let you know, and you can pass that on to the people who were concerned, all right?
Yeah.
Any other items, anybody? We're good to go. So I would like to declare this meeting closed at 7:26 p.m. on the 31st of March.
So thank you. I'm going to go and save my